The train roared through the tunnel, the lights flickering in quick, nervous intervals, painting the stranger's face in flashes of pale white and shadowed gray. My reflection stared back at me in the window, wide-eyed, lips trembling, a face I almost didn't recognize. Outside, through the blur of glass, I caught the gleam of headlights. A black sedan, gliding alongside the train like a dark thought that refused to leave. At first, I told myself it was nothing, just traffic moving in the same direction. But each time the train slowed for a stop, the car slowed too. Each time we picked up speed, it followed. A perfect mirror. My stomach twisted. I leaned closer to the stranger and whispered, "You see that car?" He didn't even turn his head. Just a single, almost imperceptible nod. "Don't make it obvious." The tone in his voice made my skin prickle. My throat went dry. "Who's in it?" He finally looked at me, and the answer came in a voice barely above a breath. "The same man who was waiting at your stop." That was all it took for panic to surge through me. The world seemed to narrow down to the pounding in my chest and the blur of lights rushing past. I pushed off my seat, heart racing, ready to bolt into the next car. But before I could take a step, his hand shot out and gripped my wrist, not harshly, but firm enough to stop me cold. "If you walk now," he said quietly, "he'll see you through the window. Wait for my cue." "My cue?" I snapped under my breath. "I don't even know who you are." He released my wrist slowly, as if he understood exactly how close I was to breaking. His eyes darted toward the window again. "Call your brother," he murmured. "Tell him not to go home tonight." The mention of Michael hit me like a jolt of electricity. I froze. "How do you know my brother?" He didn't answer. His gaze followed the blur of headlights outside as the sedan disappeared into the maze of city streets. For the first time, the calm mask on his face faltered. A flicker of something, worry, maybe regret, passed over his features. The air between us grew heavy with the kind of silence that feels like a countdown. The train screeched into the next station. The doors opened, commuters poured out, and the stranger rose, scanning the platform with practiced precision. "Stay seated," he told me. He stepped toward the open doors, looked out briefly, then turned back and sat across from me again. "He's not at this stop," he said. "You're safe." For now, my pulse refused to listen. "You keep saying I'm safe, but you're not telling me anything," I whispered harshly. "Who are you? What does Tom want from me?" He stared at me for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his voice was grave. "He doesn't just want you scared, Rachel. He wants you alone." Those words cut straight through me, because that was exactly how Tom worked. Control disguised as concern, isolation dressed up as protection. He never needed to hit me. Fear did the work for him. Even now, after all the police reports, the restraining order, the sleepless nights, he was still finding ways to reach inside my life and make it small again. The stranger reached into his jacket and pulled out something folded, paper, old and creased. He slid it across the seat toward me. "You need to see this." I hesitated, then unfolded it with shaking hands. My breath caught. It was a photograph. A picture of me, sitting on this very train, wearing the same clothes I had on now. The angle was from outside the window. It had been taken less than an hour ago. "Where did you get this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "He sent it to me," the stranger said. "He wants me to bring you to him." The floor seemed to fall away. "What?" "I told him I would," he continued, his eyes lowering. "That's how I got close enough to warn you." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My mind was a tangle of disbelief, betrayal, and terror. "Why?" I finally managed. He swallowed hard. "Because I didn't help the last woman he followed." The train jolted violently, throwing us both forward. I grabbed the pole to steady myself. Outside, the black sedan had reappeared, pacing us again. The stranger stood, moving quickly to block my view of the window. "Don't look," he said. "He's watching." Every nerve in my body screamed. My hands were trembling, my breath shallow. I didn't know whether this man had saved me or trapped me. I didn't even know which danger to fear more, the one outside the train or the one sitting right in front of me. "Next stop," he said firmly. "You're getting off with me." "If you go anywhere else, you won't make it." The announcement overhead crackled through the car. "Next stop, Clark and Division." As the brakes screeched and the train slowed, I caught a glimpse out the window and felt the last of my courage drain away. On the platform ahead, through the blur of commuters, I saw him, Tom, same gray hoodie, same cold grin, only now he wasn't alone. Two men stood beside him, both wearing dark jackets. One of them looked up, locked eyes with me, and smiled. Then he lifted his phone, my own buzzed a second later. "See you soon." I felt sick. The doors opened with a hiss. The stranger turned to me, eyes hard and urgent. "You need to trust me now. Trust." A word that felt almost ridiculous at this point. But somewhere deep down, instinct whispered that I didn't have any other choice. And I didn't know it yet. But that single decision, whether to trust him or run, would decide whether I made it out alive. The train doors slid open fully. The sounds of the city rushed in, honking cars, the rhythm of footsteps, the low murmur of morning chatter. The stranger motioned with his head. "We're getting off here. Stay close. Don't talk. Don't look back." Everything in me screamed to run the other way. But then I glanced down at my phone, at the glowing words still on the screen. "See you soon." My body froze with fear. My hands shook uncontrollably. I followed him out of the train, keeping a few paces behind. The platform was crowded, people brushing past us, oblivious to the panic burning through my veins. The stranger moved quickly, with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. We climbed the stairs two at a time and burst into the freezing air of downtown. My breath came out in clouds. The world was loud again, horns, sirens, footsteps, but it all sounded distant, muffled, like I was underwater. At the top of the stairs, the stranger stopped and turned to me. "There's a cafe across the street," he said quietly. "Go inside. Sit by the front window. Stay there until it's full of people." "Why?" My voice cracked. "Because he can't grab you in public," he said. "Not if there are witnesses." My throat tightened. "You talk like you know him." He looked away, and in that moment, the bravado slipped. What I saw in his eyes wasn't just fear, it was guilt. Deep, festering guilt. He shoved his hands into his pockets. "I had a sister," he said softly. She didn't listen when I warned her. He found her 2 days later, the world tilted beneath me. "Your sister?" I whispered. He nodded once. "Her name was Natalie." The name hit me like a cold blade. I remembered seeing it months ago. Natalie Evans found dead in her apartment. Domestic homicide suspected. I'd read that headline, maybe even shared the post, but I hadn't connected the dots. I never realized the man responsible for her death was the same one who used to share my bed. "I thought that story was about someone else," I said, my voice breaking. "That's how he works," the stranger said, his tone hollow. "He makes you feel like—" When the stranger leaned toward me on the train and whispered, "Don't get off at your stop," my first thought was that he was just another creep. Another one of those late commuters who used the crowded red line as an excuse to make small talk, to linger too close, to test boundaries. But the tone of his voice wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't even curious. It was calm, low, deliberate. The kind of calm that doesn't come from boredom but from fear. A warning disguised as a whisper. And in that instant, something in me went still. I remember forcing a small laugh, that automatic little exhale of disbelief that we all use when the world starts tilting, but we're not ready to admit it yet. I told myself not to make eye contact, not to encourage whatever this was. But I did look up. And through the blur of the window, past the reflection of the train's fluorescent light, I saw him, waiting for me on the platform. That was the moment my world shifted, like a film reel snapping from one scene to another. The air around me thickened. My body knew before my brain did. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. My name is Rachel Myers. I'm 29 years old, born and raised in Chicago. Every morning, like clockwork, I take the 7:45 red line downtown. Same coffee, same seat by the window. Same faces half asleep, scrolling through their phones. That morning was no different. Or at least, it shouldn't have been. Life lately had felt like recovery. Like tiptoeing through the ruins of something that used to be safe. After what happened with my ex, Tom Evans, I'd been pretending to be fine. Convincing my coworkers, my friends, even my own mother that I'd moved on. But deep inside, I was still watching shadows. Still flinching at sounds I couldn't name. Tom wasn't loud. Or violent in the ways people imagine when they hear abusive. He was subtle, charming. The kind of man who could make you feel guilty for your own heartbeat. 3 years of my life spent learning that manipulation can sound a lot like love. Until you wake up one day and realize you're terrified of the person sleeping beside you. When I finally left him, I thought that was the end. I changed everything. My number, my locks, even my route to work. I got a restraining order after he showed up outside my office one night, waiting in the dark like a ghost that refused to fade. The police arrested him, but he was out within a month. They said he hadn't done anything serious yet. Yet that morning, the city wore its usual gray silence like a blanket. A thin fog hung above the rooftops. The train rocked softly beneath me, the rhythmic clatter against the tracks forming a kind of hypnotic heartbeat. I had my earbuds in but wasn't really listening. My reflection swayed faintly in the glass. Pale skin, tired eyes, the kind of face that only smiles when someone's looking. Across from me sat a man I didn't recognize. Late 30s, maybe? Plain dark jacket, jeans, a quiet face. He wasn't staring exactly, more like observing. Watching the people in the car the way a detective watches suspects in a lineup. His stillness unnerved me more than anything. No fidgeting, no phone, no distractions, just our scent. As the train slowed into Addison Station, my stop, I rose automatically, coffee in one hand, bag slung over my shoulder. The train hissed, the brakes squealed. That's when he leaned forward slightly, eyes fixed on me, and whispered, "Don't get off at your stop." His tone was flat, quiet, but final. The kind of tone that cuts straight through the noise of the world and lodges deep inside your ribs. I froze, one foot in the aisle, one hand gripping the pole. "Sorry, what?" I asked, trying to sound annoyed instead of afraid. He didn't answer. Just looked at me, really looked at me, and the fear behind his calm was unmistakable. It wasn't the kind of fear you feel for yourself. It was the kind you feel for someone else. The door slid open. Cold air rushed in. Commuters pushed past me, filing out in their usual blur of coats and chatter. I turned toward the window, and that's when my body went rigid. Standing on the platform, framed perfectly in the glow of the station lights, was Tom. Same gray hoodie. Same smirk that had haunted my dreams. His hands were buried in his pockets, his head tilted slightly like he was listening to a secret no one else could hear. And then his eyes met mine. Not searching, not scanning, locked on me. That smile spread across his face like a cut opening slowly. My pulse started to race. My fingers tightened around the pole. Every instinct screamed, "Run, get off, end this now." But the stranger's warning echoed in my head, quiet but unshakable. "Don't get off." I glanced back at him. He hadn't moved. His gaze still fixed on me, steady, unwavering. The train doors beeped, ready to close. Tom took one slow step closer. His lips moved. "Rachel." The stranger shook his head. The doors shut, and the train lurched forward, carrying me away from him, from that platform, from the man who once swore he'd never let me go. I stood there, trembling, the metal pole cold against my palm. The stranger exhaled softly, like he'd been holding his breath for minutes. For a while, neither of us said anything. The sound of the tracks filled the silence like static in my chest. Finally, I found my voice, thin, shaky. "How did you know?" He didn't look at me, just stared out the window, the reflection of the city lights flickering across his face. That's when the realization hit me like a punch. I hadn't told anyone about my new route. Not my family, not my friends. Not even my brother, Michael. So how the hell did he know who was waiting for me? The train roared into the tunnel, lights flashing across his features. And then, in that same quiet, even voice, he said something that froze my blood all over again. "Don't go home tonight." I turned toward him, my pulse pounding. "What do you mean?" But before I could finish, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You still take the 7:45, huh?" My stomach dropped. Another buzz. "You look beautiful when you're scared." I turned the screen off, shoved it into my bag. My throat went dry. "Do you know him?" I asked the stranger. "The man on the platform." "Do you know him?" He turned slowly to face me, eyes steady. "I told you not to get off." "That doesn't answer my question," I snapped, fear bubbling into anger. He scanned the car. Everyone else was lost in their own worlds, earbuds in, eyes glazed, as if none of this was real but me. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, heavier. "You shouldn't be alone today." Every muscle in me tensed. "Who are you?" He looked at me for a long time, something flickering behind his eyes. Guilt. Maybe. Regret. Someone who knows what happens when you ignore the signs. The train slowed again, wheels grinding against the rails. My stop was long gone. Through the fogged glass, the skyline of downtown Chicago blurred past. I tried to focus on the lights, on the normalcy of it, office towers, traffic, people crossing streets. But then I noticed it. A black sedan, driving parallel to the tracks, keeping pace with the train. And in that moment, I knew this was no coincidence. Something was following me, something, or someone. The moment his voice slipped through the wall, my world went silent. Everything inside that dim, oil-stained room froze. The hum of the hanging bulb, the faint drip of water from somewhere in the pipes, even the beating of my own heart. Tom's voice carried a poisonous calm, the kind that wrapped around your name like a noose. "Rachel, you've been busy." My stomach dropped. That sound, low, deliberate, intimate, dragged memories out of the dark corners of my mind. Late-night arguments, the slam of a door, the way he always smiled when he knew I was afraid. The stranger, my only lifeline in this unraveling nightmare, lifted a finger to his lips. His jaw flexed as he edged closer to the window, his body moving in sharp, controlled breaths. The knife in his hand caught the light of the bulb and shimmered once before he killed the glare with his palm. Outside, Tom's footsteps crunched slowly across the gravel, circling, measuring the space, studying us. Then came another sound. 3 soft taps against the wall, metal on metal. He wasn't just at the door. He was tracing the edges of the building, testing where it was weakest. I crouched lower behind a shelf stacked with rusting train parts, pressing my palms against the concrete floor to keep them from shaking. "Stay here," the stranger mouthed again. And I wanted to believe him, but how could I, when even breathing felt like betrayal? Tom's voice drifted in once more, softer now, almost gentle. "You can open the door, Rachel." "I'm not mad. I just want to talk." That tone, that mocking tenderness. My breath hitched, memory clashing with the present. I could still feel the grip of his hand around my wrist from the last time he'd just wanted to talk. The stranger turned toward me, whispering, "He's trying to get in your head." "I know," I mouthed back, though my voice barely existed. But then Tom spoke again, and every drop of blood in my body turned cold. "You shouldn't trust him, Rachel. You know that, don't you?" I froze, my thoughts fractured. How does he know there's someone here? The stranger's jaw tightened, eyes darting toward the locked door. "He's watching," he murmured under his breath. A chill crept up my spine. I followed his gaze to a narrow vent high on the wall, the kind used for air circulation. The faintest glimmer flickered inside, a reflection, a lens. My pulse stuttered. He wasn't guessing. He could see us. The stranger reacted first, snatching a wrench from the table and hurling it at the vent. Metal screamed against metal, sparks flaring, glass shattering. Then silence again. Heavy, suffocating silence. "Pack your things," he hissed, voice low and fierce. "We have to move, now." "But he'll see us leave," I whispered. "He already has." The words sent a surge of adrenaline through me. I grabbed my bag, slinging it over my shoulder, hands trembling so hard the zipper caught on the fabric. Outside, the gravel crunched again, closer this time. Then the unmistakable creak of the rusted door handle being tested. Slow, patient, certain. "Go to the back," the stranger said, motioning toward a narrow corridor. I moved, each step echoing in that claustrophobic dark. The air smelled of dust, rust, and something else. Something sharp and metallic, like blood on iron. Behind us, the first heavy blow struck the front door. Bang. The echo rolled through the building. I flinched, nearly tripping over a discarded toolbox. "Move," the stranger urged. Another crash followed. The hinges groaned. He shoved a shelf in front of the door, metal screeching against concrete. I slipped through the corridor, heart pounding, eyes stinging. When we reached the rear exit, he stopped, pressing his ear to the frame. Outside, the city was alive. Horns, engines, laughter. But here, in this forgotten corner of the tracks, it felt like another world. "On 3, he whispered. 1, the next bang was louder, wood splintering. 2, footsteps, multiple, not just Tom. 3! He yanked the door open, flooding the room with cold night air. We burst into the alley, the sound of breaking metal erupting behind us. I didn't look back. The stranger grabbed my wrist, pulling me into the shadows. My legs moved on instinct, breath ragged, the city blurring around me. Then, just as we turned the corner, I heard it. Tom's voice again. This time closer than ever. "You can run, Rachel, but he's not the one you should be afraid of." We stopped dead. I turned to the stranger, but his expression wasn't fear. It was guilt. And that's when I realized Tom hadn't been talking to me. He'd been talking about him. The streetlights flickered. Somewhere behind us, a car engine roared to life. And for the first time, I wasn't sure who I was really running from. The air inside that rusted maintenance room was so thick with tension, it felt like breathing through smoke. My pulse pounded in my ears as the faint hum of the security monitors flickered on the small desk beside us. The stranger's eyes darted toward the screens, tiny black and white images of the outside lot, then widened with a quiet curse. "Through the cameras," he said, his voice low and grim. "Security system outside. I should have disabled it. And then," Tom's voice again. Closer this time. Too close. "You didn't tell her who you really are, did you?" "Should I?" The stranger froze mid-breath. The sound of that question sliced through me like a blade. My chest constricted. My mind scrambled to process what I'd just heard. "Who you really are? What is he talking about?" I whispered, my voice trembling, desperate for an answer. The stranger didn't meet my eyes. His jaw tightened, his gaze flickering toward the window, then back to me. "He's lying." From outside, Tom's laughter rolled through the air, dark and deliberate. "He didn't tell you his name, did he?" "Ask him, Rachel." "Ask him his name." My stomach twisted, nausea clawing at my throat. I turned to the stranger, my voice barely holding together. "Who are you?" He opened his mouth, hesitated, and that half-second of silence told me more than words ever could. The door handle rattled violently. Glass shattered. The world exploded into chaos as a hand reached through the window, fumbling for the lock. The stranger lunged, slamming the man's arm against the frame so hard the metal groaned. Tom grunted from the other side, a low animal sound that made my blood run cold. "Run!" the stranger shouted. I didn't look back. I bolted through the narrow corridor, every step echoing like gunfire. My shoulder hit the service door and it flew open, spilling me into the freezing night. Cold air slapped my face, sharp with the scent of oil and rain. Behind me, I heard it, the struggle. Heavy footsteps, grunts, the violent crash of metal against concrete. Then silence. I ran anyway. Between rows of parked train cars, shadows slicing across the yard. My lungs burned. My breath came out ragged, each inhale tasting like rust and fear. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look. I just ran until the world narrowed to darkness and adrenaline. When I reached the far fence, I grabbed for it, fingers slipping against the icy steel. My body was shaking, drenched in sweat and panic. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Fast. Closing in. I spun around, ready for the worst. It was him, the stranger. Blood splattered across his shirt, his chest heaving. He reached out, voice harsh and urgent. "Come on, we have to go." But something was wrong. His tone, off, rushed, too desperate. Then I saw it. A small cut on his wrist where a watch should have been. The same kind of watch Tom used to wear. My stomach lurched. "Where's Tom?" I demanded. He didn't answer. His eyes flickered to the left, then back to me. Calculating, unreadable. "Where's Tom?" I screamed again. And then, in that quiet, chilling voice I knew too well, he said, "Right here." The world tilted. My lungs locked. My knees nearly buckled. The face in front of me, the stranger's face, shifted, softened into a smile I recognized from 100 nightmares. Tom's smile, cold, careful, measured. "You shouldn't have trusted strangers, Rachel," he said. "You never were good at that." For a moment I thought about running. Every instinct screamed move. But behind him, through the rising fog, a shadow darted. Another figure. Then, a blur of motion. The real stranger slammed into Tom from behind, the impact knocking both men to the ground. They fought viciously, raw, desperate fists pounding against gravel. The sound of flesh meeting bone echoed across the empty train yard. Tom reached for the knife. The stranger got there first, a flash of silver. A single final breath, and then silence. Tom lay still. The stranger knelt beside him, his face ghost pale beneath the flickering streetlight. His hands shook as he whispered, "It's done." I sank to my knees, my whole body trembling. In the distance, a train horn wailed, a long, mournful sound that merged with the pounding in my chest. Minutes later, the police arrived. Flashing lights painted the yard red and blue. When they searched the scene, Tom was dead, his blood soaking the gravel, but the stranger was gone. No name, no ID, no trace. Just a trail of blood leading away into the dark and a single echo left behind in my mind. "You're safe now. Don't ever look back." But I knew I would. Even wrapped in a blanket in the back of an ambulance, the cold wouldn't leave me. Detective Harris asked the same questions over and over. "Who attacked you? Who saved you?" Each time I tried to answer, the truth blurred around the edges. Tom was gone. The stranger vanished. They found no fingerprints on the knife. No evidence he'd ever been there at all. It was as if he'd stepped out of thin air and disappeared back into it. Detective Harris put a hand on my shoulder. "We'll get you somewhere safe tonight. Your brother's been notified. He's on his way." My breath caught. "My brother?" I asked. "Michael?" She nodded. "He said he'll meet you at the hospital." But those words, "my brother," didn't feel like comfort. They felt like a warning. Hours later at the hospital, fluorescent lights burned my eyes. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air. Then the door opened, and there he was. Michael, my brother. He looked exhausted, eyes red-rimmed but kind. He hugged me tight, whispering, "It's over now, Rachel." And for the first time all night, I cried. He rubbed my back gently. "Tom can't hurt you anymore. The doctor said I was lucky. Just scratches and bruises." I nodded, trying to believe it. But something was off. Michael's uniform caught my eye, the wrong patch from his old division. His hair damp like he'd just showered. His hands shaking slightly. And on his wrist, a faint red mark. "A cut. You're okay," he murmured. "You did the right thing calling for help." "I didn't call," I whispered. "The police just came." He froze. "Just a moment." A heartbeat. Then he smiled again. "Then someone was looking out for you." The same words. The exact ones the stranger had said on the train. My chest tightened. My voice came out fragile. "Michael, how did you know where I was tonight?" He looked at me, smile fading, eyes unreadable. "The department told me. Said you were found near the yard. That there was a man." But I wasn't listening anymore. The voice, the tone, the phrasing, it all pressed down like déjà vu. You didn't come from home, did you? I asked quietly. He hesitated. No, I came straight from work. But the uniform told another story. Before I could speak again, the door opened and Detective Harris stepped inside. Rachel, she said, we need to ask you a few follow-up. She stopped. Her gaze flicked to the chair beside me. Her face drained of color. Who are you talking to? I blinked, confused. My brother. He's right. The chair was empty. The blanket slipped from my shoulders. The air turned cold. Detective Harris's voice softened, careful. Rachel, your brother's downstairs. He's been waiting to see you. My lips trembled. No. He was just here. She frowned, gesturing to the empty space. You're in shock. Come with me. But then I saw it. A small folded piece of paper resting on the chair cushion. Hands shaking, I picked it up. Neat handwriting. No signature. He's gone now. Don't ever take the train at 7:45 again. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the stranger's face, the way he'd looked at me on the train. Steady, knowing, protective, haunted. Whoever he was, he'd saved my life. But deep down, I knew he hadn't appeared by chance. He was connected to Tom, to Michael. Maybe to something bigger. Weeks passed. The police called it self-defense. Life went on. Almost. Sometimes when Michael drives us past the tracks, I catch him glancing into the rearview mirror, like he's watching something neither of us can see, and every morning, when the 7:45 red line rolls by my street, I hear it again. His voice, soft, distant. Don't get off at your stop. Funny how one sentence can rewrite your whole life. That day, a stranger's warning saved me. But it also taught me the cruelest truth of all. Sometimes danger isn't waiting on the platform. Sometimes it's sitting right beside you. Wearing the face you trust most. If you made it this far, subscribe and tell me in the comments. What would you do if a stranger whispered, "Don't get off at your stop"?